Okay, now it is December 10th, 2019 at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and there's Elsie in War Room 1. I'm going to try and get up in here for a few moments anyway, right? Remember those? I still have to get up into this stuff here, people. It's just for quick reference. Alright. I wonder what's over there. Hold on. Okay. So now I'm sitting down. I have these bins behind me. I don't got a lot of space in here, people. So I'm kind of stuck on this chair because I haven't moved my bin so I can move my chair back. I forgot about that shelf. It's just hanging in suspended animation. Right, suspended animation. Animation. It's A-N-I-M. Animation. Suspended emanation. Because it dropped from its hook because the hook broke, remember? And it never fell over and crashed into the glass. And I've been so busy I completely forgot about it. So I think I'm going to deal with this. I need another hook. That's what it is. I don't want to empty this. I have no place to put it. I want to hang it back up. But this time I'll double hook it. Anyway. I'll figure that out later. So. Oh my God, this light. I'm going to put this camera over here somewhere. Alright. Only it's kind of hard for me to see. Have it on a lampshade, lampshade. So, I really don't know how much I'm going to get done in here. It's probably about 6:30 in the morning and I'm already tired. The weather's been warm. Well, not warm, but it's been mild. So, yesterday I was supposed to go down into the basement, but I ended up in the greenhouse. So, if it's like it was yesterday, I'm gonna just work in the greenhouse and get it ready for winter because I never spent any time in there. It was just a wild forest at one point. So I'm weeding it and stuff like that. Throwing in some of those old nuts that are 2 years old into just whatever. Right? If it catches next year, if it does, it doesn't. If it does, it does. And then if they don't, then you just dig up the nut and wash it and dry it. And it's good for crafts. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read this with this light on. This one's too bright. But it wouldn't matter anyway. So, this is a letter. I thought, as I come across, because this is all evidence, people. This is evidence to whatever has been happening for quite a long time. And it makes reference to Uncle John and whatnot, right? This was written in 2017 when I was getting a lot of flack from the city, right? Because, you know, people wanted this house. Or people didn't want to get caught with what was happening with Uncle John. That was a big one. Because that shit didn't start until after Uncle John went missing. Right? But then a lot of shit didn't start until after John went missing. Right? Like the housing market didn't really start crashing until after that time period. And then for several years it was just, you know, this slowed down a bit, but anyway, let me read this. I didn't want to keep this video very long. I don't know what my day is going to be like, right? I go where I have the energy to go to. I can't see this, so let me turn this light off. Maybe that might help. Hold on a minute. Okay, let's see if I can read this. It looks like I'm going to have problems in here this time around. Shmei used to come up and visit me when I was in here writing for Uncle John. Oh yeah, that's not making any difference in here, people. I can't even see this. I'm going to have to get those prescription glasses. What's happening is my eyes don't adjust to the lights like they used to. If I go in from the inside to the outside, oh, just the different light spectrums from dark to bright, and then have to start moving around. It can take me a while to get used to it. I don't know. It's going like this. The paper is glaring. To Mayor Hepner and Deputy Mayor Gill. I am writing this letter because since April of 2015, when did Uncle John go missing, people? In February of 2015. City of Surrey bylaw officers have been involved with me regarding yard work at the property I live on, and have been living with my family since November 20th, 2009, when we first took occupancy. Consequently, prior to moving onto the Ravine Road, I was in a situation where I felt it was necessary to have the city electrician inspection, to have a city electrical inspection at the last location my family was living at, which was a fourplex on 121 Ave in Surrey, BC. Unfortunately, my family, though, we were evicted from that location within a year because of what happened after the City of Surrey did their inspection, which resulted in no work orders due to severe electrical and structural problems. In addition to, there was an illegal grow-op on the property connected to the laundry room. I almost lost my life because of that issue when a broken water pipe spewing water directly into a dryer that was turned on while the laundry room was being flooded out with water. This is how my family came to living at Ravine Road, from being evicted from a fourplex that had a grow-op in it, as hydro was being hijacked from our suite to pay for it. At one point, hydro was even cut off at the hydro pole for 12 days before I had to make a request for the mayor, and at that time that would have been Mayor Diane Watts, to intervene to have it turned back on because of my elderly stepfather and his wife and my young children, being it was in October of 2009 with temperatures at 50 to 60 degrees. We went 12 days without hydro, people, because of fucking landlords hijacking our hydro as they had a grow-op on the property. They got away with the grow-op, though, because the city gave them enough time to clear it out before they came in and did their inspection. Like full inspection. Not just the part that they went through with me, but they wanted to go into other parts of the building itself, right? But they had to give them time notice before they could just show up and say, okay, we're here now. Right? They had to give them 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever it was, and that gave them enough time to clear out their fucking grow up at 4 o'clock in the morning, because I seen it. The electrician was a Punjabi guy, right? Short little with a fucking whatever you call turban on, but he was a heroin addict. He used to do the heroin in the basement in the laundry room when he was pretending to try and fix shit, as the city was doing whatever the city was doing. He came along and he busted up a bunch of fucking holes in the wall in the basement because they were so mad because I asked for this inspection. This was a relative to the owner of the property. And her brother was a heroin addict. He lived next door and climbed the roof and would peek down the fucking vent holes into our bathroom. Just fucking crazy shit, right? Anyway, this guy, he busted up the fucking walls, and because the city by this time, right, getting into October or whatever it was, September, by this time, because I called almost within the first 6 weeks of moving into that place, it was so bad, people. So we lived like that with this bullshit going on for almost a year until eventually I just got an eviction notice, and yeah, that's how I ended up here. But he busted up by, halfway through the process because the city, by this time knew what was going on with the fucking electrical and the plumbing. And so, I guess they were going to do some major repairs or something within the walls themselves. So he just came and busted up all the fucking walls in the laundry room and the basement and shit. And then he'd bust up those, what do you call it? Because he was a drug addict, right? And he'd bust up, those fluorescent light bulbs, those curly ones that you're not supposed to break, right? And he busted up like 4 or 5 of them in the fucking basement. And then they just left them there, people. A week goes by, right? I was getting nervous with this shit, right? I'm looking, and it wasn't a week, it was a few days or something, right? After a few fucking days, I'm like, what the fuck is this shit, right? Nobody's coming to clean it up, right? And I phoned her and I told her, right? The owner, right? And she said, oh, well, yeah, I'll come by and clean it up. And a day goes by, she's not there. So I ended up cleaning it up, people. I cleaned up a whole lot of fucking mercury. That's what I did. Because they were playing games. If you don't like it, that's the first time I heard, if you don't like it, you can move. If you don't like it, you can move. If you don't like it, you can move. And then I move in here, and I get that from my landlady. You don't like it, you can move. Right? And I'm like, holy shit. Where do these people learn this shit from? Fucking obviously in their temples. I've said it in a past video, and I'm not afraid or ashamed to say it. Now, does that mean that every Punjabi that goes into the temple says, if you don't like it, you can move? Obviously not. I'm hearing something moving. Must be a cat. Obviously not. But, anyway. We'll just read through this one, and then what I'm going to do is an experiment. And I did say I was going to provide some documentations, right, in terms of, well, I'm not even going to put some. I did say I was going to provide documentation as to my efforts, right, to fight for my family. So that when I get to court the next time, nobody can't say I haven't been trying, right? This is just one of these letters. Oh, there's many more. So what I'm going to do after the fact is I'm going to scan this. I'm going to save it on my computer. This is the experiment for me. And then I'm going to see if there's some way I can import this into my, what is it called, Google Documents, and put them up there and make them public. As receipts. When renting the house on, or tea. I'm bringing the tea. When renting the house on Ravine Road, I was encouraged by my current landlords to rent it at the time when viewing it. In other words, pay now. If you walk out the door and you don't say you want it, we can't guarantee it will be here when you get back. Take it now or leave it, right? One of those situations. And because my family represented a stable income in terms of 2 elderly persons on disability pensions with myself and 3 younger children, therefore, the landlord said to me, take the place now and we'll never raise the rent, and that we could stay as long as we wanted, or maybe lose it if you leave because the next person might rent it. And we took it that night. And I didn't realize that it had no inside stairs because it was a rush deal. It was good after the fact when Joan was here and, I could lock her out. Do you know that Joan walked her ass from the basement all the way around the house, came up my front stairs, and tried to break into my door? That woman was wicked. It's amazing how much a sick individual can have power over one household under the right circumstances. Anyway, outside of that, I wish this house had inside stairs. It would make life easier, but anyway, we started paying rent on November 20th, 2009, but I did not fully move my family into the house until December 12th, 2009. Once moving into the house and really getting a chance to view the yard, it soon became apparent that the yard itself had been severely neglected by the previous tenants. It had a severe infestation of morning glory growing throughout the whole property from front to back and from side to side, along with buttercup, clover, and any other kind of weed one can imagine. What I am trying to say is, once I moved into the house, and because when we viewed it initially in the dark, after I began to do yard work and realized the amount of work I was going to have to do in order to control the weed problem and other issues that the yard had, I didn't have a choice in the matter because I had just moved my family in from a bad situation. Hence, long story short, I have invested tens of thousands of hours of my time over a period of 7 years in this yard to deal with multiple issues, from weed infestation to drainage and runoff problems to bad and dead dirt that was either landfill or large patches of sand that could only grow weeds and nothing else. Okay, I wrote this on October 6th of 2017, right? And this is not to mention the thousands of dollars I have spent over the last 7 years to build in structure such as a functioning greenhouse and a secondary seedling area greenhouse, which I could now legally turn into a hen house because I'm allowed hens because the property is big enough within its city guidelines. So of course my landlord, Mr. Gill, which is a different Gill, he's like, come on, get some chickens. And I'm like, I don't know. I miss I miss Mr. Lace. Right. Anyway, in addition to, I have either built or had men build for me 4 to 5 sheds over the course of years so that I could have storage space, as the property had none of this. And I did this all to try and control weed infestation in general. I have also laid down brick walkways, both in the front and back of the yard, to cover up the sand or mud and or grit. And while doing that, I have also put in a small pond with my grandson in the front of the yard, as with us having small pond. And while doing that, I also put in a small pond with my grandson in the front of the yard, with us having plans to put in a larger pond in the year of 2018 after winter is over. Shimei would have been just had the baby. September, October. Amari would have been 2 months old, 1 month old. Amari was born September 7th, 2018. This was written on October 6th of 2017. So Amari would have been 1 month old. As of today, because of the yard work that I've put into this yard, I can now grow a variety of vegetables to feed my grandsons, such as beets, carrots, potatoes, tomatoes, peas, beans, leeks, lettuce, kale, Swiss chard, onions, cucumbers, squashes, and so on, as I now have several garden beds throughout the whole yard, either in the front, back, or on the side of the house. And I also have 8 blueberry bushes, 2 raspberry bushes, plum trees, strawberries, and after 7 years, a grapevine that produces grapes. Also, it should be noted, my grandson and I grow trees such as white oak, black walnut, English walnut, holly, and Norway maples, being just a few. I am mentioning this because of February 20th, 2015. My stepdad, Mr. John Bernard Duncan, was medically kidnapped from the Yale Road Center that resulted from his sister illegally taking over his assets through the facilitation of Fraser Health Authority and CIBC Bank because he developed a lung infection from a local flu in the month of December of 2014. He didn't develop it in 2014. He got it. He was the last person to get it in January of 15 because it ran through the house. Right? The girls were working, both of the girls were working at McDonald's and coming into contact with 1,000 homeless people a day. Sierra was running in and out of the door with her homelessness, back and forth, doing whatever. Right? Uncle John was the last one to get it. But it started in December. And it ran through the homeless population. Of course, my kids came into contact with it one way or another. They brought it home. I was the second last person to get it. And it was bad. But it wasn't bad enough that it warranted being medically kidnapped and ripped away from your family to never fucking see them again. And then to have your money robbed of you. Consequently, since his disappearance from a healthcare facility, I have been gang-stalked to the point where people have tried to get me evicted from my home by calling the city of Surrey, complaining about the yard, or have called my landlords directly trying to get me evicted. And when that didn't work, these individuals have called Ministry of Children and Family Development, MCFD, trying to get my grandson, who is now 7 years old, taken away from me. I have had MCFD come to my house 3 times, people, since Mr. Duncan mysteriously disappeared. Doesn't that sound familiar? How many times has MCFD, Ministry of Children and Family Development, come since Shimei's to my house or called me up on the phone since Shimei's been murdered? Almost equal to, if not more, 4 times. Right? I have had MCFD come to my house 3 times since Mr. Duncan mysteriously disappeared on February 20th of 2015. It was actually, I think, on the 22nd or 21st or something like that. Anyway, with the more... It's because I seen him on the 19th, and I just assumed that he was taken on the 20th. But he was taken on the day when I showed up, and there was that person, whoever it was, in the hammock with all those fucking people standing around. With that bitch, Eleanor, saying, "Get out of here, you're being disrespectful. Where's John? John's not here." Oh, I so wish I would have went and fucking pushed past those people and looked. Because if I would have looked, people, oh my God, the story would have been completely different. I would have had the fucking cops. But you know what they would have done? They would have lied. They would have fucking lied, people. They would have sat up there and had some lying fucking doctor tell me, "Oh no, we're not taking John. He just got suddenly sick in the middle of the night, and he's going back to the Surrey Memorial Hospital. Emergency." Before they would tell me that they doped him up and put him in a fucking hammock to take him across the ferry. And that's what they did, people. That's why when he was talking on with the kids, when he woke up, everything was weird. When he woke up, everything was weird. Because he woke up in Victoria. Because they doped him up in the fucking bed and then put him in the hammock. If I would have went to John's bed at that time, even if I would have caught them red-handed, right? Before they got him on the ferry, they just would have sat up there and fucking concocted some stupid fucking lie saying, "Oh no, his lung infection with ammonia came back, and we're just sending him back to, to the Surrey Memorial Hospital, and he, so he can recuperate better." And they'll just keep doping him up with the fucking Oxycontin, right? So they can fucking say that he's sick, people. That's what was going on. So it's important this stays up. Mysteriously disappeared on February 20th, 2015 with the more recent complaint that my house was unsafe because of 2 screws in a rail. Go into my videos, people. You'll find that fucking video. It should be noted, I have attempted to file 2 separate lawsuits, with one against Fraser Health Authority and the other against CIBC Bank, regarding Mr. Duncan. As I have enduring power of attorney, I also have power of attorney, people, trust me. I signed twice, okay? I signed 2 different forms, right? I signed in 1990, the enduring one, and then CIBC Bank called us back in fucking 2001, or it was November of 2001, and I signed another one that was just general power of attorney, because that's what they wanted. But when you sign this shit with these kind of people, it doesn't matter when they want you out of the picture, trust me. And that's more reason to fight the power. Right? Because if they can't honor their own fucking words, then they don't have any right to have any kind of fucking good reputation. Both corporations failed to acknowledge for their own corporate or personal agendas and or profit. They ignored the fact that I had enduring power of attorney and power of attorney. And being that the gang stalking against my persons and my family never started until Mr. Duncan disappeared, it just so happened that the City of Surrey bylaw officers began to target my yard beginning in April of 2015, after I came back from Delta Spring cleanup with compost bins and large children's toys. That's what they started to target, because they were big and the children's toys were colorful. After my stepdad was medically kidnapped, I fell into extreme financial hardship and have stayed that way ever since, due to me having to take on the total household debt over the course of 23 years. that he lived with me and my children, as Mr. Duncan was legally blind and depended on me as his caregiver. When he was taken, I cannot meet each bill every month in a timely manner. I am on low income, with it being $767 per month. That's what my welfare check was at the time, people, for me. And I receive $800 from the province for the care of my grandson. That would be Andre. And I suffer from glaucoma with an eye pressure of 40 to 50 psi. And because I have been working in the yard for 7 years with all my heart and energy to correct the wrongs in it in order to provide my family with a good home, needless to say, my health isn't very good anymore. However, I look after my grandson, who homeschools due in part because I am still establishing boundaries with him, being he was in foster care for 15 months between January of 2013 to March of 2014, as when he came home, he had severe behavioral problems. His mother, my oldest daughter, is a full-blown addict today, and because of the wrongful apprehension of my grandson back in 2013, my daughter has never recovered from that, and no matter what I have tried to do to help her, she is now dying on the streets of the city of Surrey, as Fraser Health Authority does nothing to protect her from very dangerous situations that she has come into contact with every day while facing homelessness with no access to proper health care services. This is to the mayor and the deputy mayor. Understandably, I could write a book about all the bad things that have been happening since my stepdad went missing, because the people who took him or who facilitated his disappearance do not want to be held accountable for the laws that they broke under the Criminal Code of Canada. And therefore, I have just been trying to maintain on keeping my house so that my grandson can have a more normal and happy childhood now that he is back home with his family. However, City of Surrey bylaw officers, for whatever reason, have targeted my yard as if I have done nothing in the 7 years that I've been living here. First time I was targeted in the yard was for a year straight. For a whole year, they had me out there going to my videos, right? Between April of 2015 to May of 2016. Bylaw officer who asked me to move the wood, I moved the wood. People, didn't matter, rain or shine, snow, I was out there doing whatever the fuck he told me to do because I had no intentions of losing my house. Working harder than I had ever had on things I would have done anyway. In other words, I would have done them, he just made me do them faster and harder and more of it. That's all. And all because of Delta Spring cleanup and compost bins and toys, to which, of course, led into other things that kept me working in the yard at one point for over 70 days straight without any rest. In other words, I worked out there for every day for 70 days. And we're not talking 2-3 hours. We're talking 10, 12, 14 fucking hours. Because I was desperate to keep my house. Basically. Then it started up again in June of 2017, after I began to buy building materials for a shed by the back driveway in order to clean up the area of the yard in general. That's where I have that video with all that drama in the back with Tisha's stepbrother, right, from her dad's side, having a fucking getting in the mix and trying to move the stuff, and it's just... But don't forget, you know, we have these homeowners and property developers that want this house, right? so they can build onto their stockpile of houses. So they can tear them all down at one time and build in unaffordable housing that only an immigrant population can move into for whatever reason. As families as myself die off one by one. And what happens? The smaller the family gets, the more vulnerable the remaining family becomes, especially when it becomes a Lord of the Rings, or Lord of the Rings with the leadership of children, because all the adults were killed off. Then it started up again in June of 2017, after I began to buy building materials for a shed at the back driveway, Andre's shed, in order to clean up the area of the yard in general, as that shed should have been built in June of 2015. It never got done, though, because Uncle John disappeared, right? We had plans to build. Jerry was already had the frame. He just finished it in 2017. I had paid Jerry for that. It's a good shed. Trust me, I didn't get into it this year, but next year we get into it. I even rat-proofed it, so we'll see how rat-proofed it really is when we get in there next year. I have videos on that too, people. But because my stepdad was medically kidnapped, I didn't have the financial resources to have it built then. For whatever reason, city bylaw officers have been on a vengeance, threatening to fine my landlady $15,000. But I have never been given a list as to what is wrong outside of I am expected to get rid of everything in sight, so that a picture can be taken to prove that the back driveway area or wherever else is in question is suitable to the city bylaw officer. I was given an eviction notice then because of that pending $15,000 fine. But more time was more time was given to me until October of this year to correct the situation, despite still not knowing what is expected, other than I am not allowed to have anything in my yard anymore, or at least it seems that way. I've been told I am expected to get rid of my car too, to which I have owned for 27 years, and is the only car I have owned in all that time. Well, in 27 years, I owned other cars prior to that, but anyway, this one is still sitting out in the back, people. Still sitting out in the back. So it's going on 30 years I've owned that car. That's Betsy, right? Consequently, my landlord phoned me today saying the city bylaw officer is now going to fine her $8,400 this time to do something, to start taking my possessions off the property that he deems unimportant or an eyesore, and including my car, while I never get a written list of what the problem is in the yard, despite investing 7 years into it, considering how it was when I first moved in. Basically, I am the only person who works in the yard, and my neighbors will verify this. And not only that, but many will say they love the yard because it is so nice. So I don't understand why city bylaw officers are trying so hard to get me evicted from my home, because that is what is happening. As my landlady told me today, she is evicting me because I didn't clean up the back fast enough, and she is tired of being harassed by the city as if somehow I am a bad tenant. This would be the second time I will be evicted from my home because of city employees. But only this time, because of what happened to my stepdad, I am now facing homelessness in addition to losing everything I own because I cannot afford to move as I am completely broke. In addition to, because of what happened to my stepdad and the situation I was placed in because of his disappearance, not to mention the housing market is completely not affordable anymore, even if I could afford to move. In closing, there are general porch repairs that are in the process of being done or will be done soon. The beams, right? With the help of my neighbor. And because of that, I still have some building material in the back for that purpose, while my grandson's shed is almost complete to where I just need to add on some more shingles when I get some time. As for the rest of the yard, I'm still laying in brick pathways to cover up areas where mud or sand is a problem when it rains, and or finishing off pathways depending on where they are. And I do have to do a few compost repairs that require wood in addition to greenhouse touch-ups, among other general things I do in the yard throughout the year, while the larger pond is scheduled to be put in next year. Consequently, my grandson loves this yard, so for me, he is the driving factor to keep me focused. However, the city bylaw officer has told my landlady I have 1 week from today, October 6, 2017. This was 1 month after Amari was born, to clean up, but with no list to be specific as to what is the problem outside of I'm being told I have to get rid of everything in sight and including my car. And if I don't, then a city truck will come to my house, while my landlady says I'm being evicted now because I didn't do what the city asked me to do in the time that they gave me. So I am asking for a review in this matter, as I am only one person with a big yard to cope with by myself, as basically I am and have been the only person who has been working in this yard since moving in with my family in December of 2009. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. Sincerely, J. Judy Chorney. Please note, area as far as I know in question is the back alley where on regular basis homeless people walk up and down, and oftentimes will use my yard to hide their belongings that I don't always notice right away because I don't go outside to the back alley area every day to look to see if someone had done that. Or homeless people, and including my oldest daughter, will go into my garage and scatter things around, or will take things out and then move them to the end of the back alley driveway where the city would see that as garbage. Or my oldest daughter will come in the middle of the night and scatter planting materials, e.g. planter pots, dirt, plants, etc., that she gathers up from the yard around in my back alley driveway, in addition to bringing garbage to that area, mostly in the form of cardboard boxes and bags of paper, as she is suffering from a mental illness, and will leave boxes full of bags full of pop cartons or random papers. Due to the raccoon problem in the area, every year I have to contend with female raccoons busting into sheds or other enclosed shelters and tearing everything apart that is inside for a period of 3 to 4 months so they can have their young, while I have had and still have up to 4 to 5 raccoons living in my woodpile throughout the year. Right? especially in the winter, right? And that woodpile really provides shelter for them in the winter. Anyway, raccoons is another major reason I have built structures like sheds and greenhouses on the property as a preventative measure to control raccoon latrines, which have been a major problem ever since I moved in addition to weed control. I also believe that while not everyone in the neighborhood is jealous of the yard in terms of what kinds of food it can grow now, and how the flowers bloom in the growing season in combination with everything else that is nice about this yard now, I do think there are some neighbors who are extremely jealous and purposely complain to the city to get me evicted so that perhaps they might be able to move in, or at least if they can't have it, then I can't have it too. With Andre's shed now almost completed, I was planning on doing children's activities come springtime with the children from the subsidized complex across the street, as Andre is making new friends there now, and because I have an abundance of craft materials, you've seen that, people, because I work on a non-profit, that opportunity has been taken away from us in light of my recent eviction notice because of what has been happening. This was written in October of 2017. Shmei asked me to get out there and start doing park events and kids' crafts and all this other stuff that, you know, and she got murdered when? April 11th, 2018. So I wrote this in October, so we'll just say October, November, December, January, February, March, going into April, going into the 7th month, she was murdered. When I used to sit and type in here with Uncle John stuff, and she'd come and she'd stand here and talk to me. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can scan this. Okay, I'm not too worried about it, people. Alright. And then I'm going to see if I can get it onto my, I guess you call it Google Documents. Try that first to make it legitimate, because you're going to see over the years how this shit piles up. Okay? And, like, as I'm going through my papers in here, the stuff that I would write to whoever regarding Andre when he was taken and put in foster care and all that shit. I'm going to put up those letters, the letters that I wrote to those judges back in the day, right? When I was fighting for Andre. And anything that I wrote in regards to fighting for Uncle John. And you're going to see how it's going to pile up.